Let's bring in Mike Allen, Axios co-founder. Michael, good morning. It's good to see you. It's nice to see that we're getting the same sort of analysis and response from both sides of the aisle this morning. Read that as sarcasm. It's amazing, but here's
we did read it that way. We caught on.
Yes. You're very well.
Subtle, but
I see what you do at Axios. I see the snarky. No, I'm just kidding. That's that other guy, Swan, who I love. Anyway, you want to just summarize some of the comments? I think we have some tweets from Senator Warren. I want to talk about Joe Biden actually at some point, but across the board, the right was pretty positive about taking this guy out. When you that we can say.
Very much so. And we want to be clear, America now is on a war footing, and the responses from both sides reflect that. So you had Republican senators saying the president is following through. New Year's Eve, he said Iran is going to pay a very big price, all caps. And we're seeing their response from Democrats. Senator Warren pointing out that this was a bad actor. He was responsible for hundreds of American deaths, and yet warning against escalation. We were asking about Biden, the former vice president, saying that the president threw a stick of dynamite in a tinderbox. Those are candidates, though. Listen to what Speaker Pelosi says. Speaker Pelosi, who's third in power in the government, says Congress was not consulted. In her statement, she uses the word escalation twice. She says she wants Congress to be briefed not only on next steps here, but also on this escalation in deployment of American troops.
Is there anything to that? I mean, to do something like this, does the president have to consult with Congress to take out this guy after what happened at the embassy?
That'll be debated and disputed for sure. Congress is going to inject itself in a scoop here from that other guy, as you said, the great Jonathan Swan, said that sources close to the Trump national security team say that something that the White House has been very worried about and is prepared for is a cyber reaction from Iran, that there could be a cyber attack, that is the surest way that Iran could attack stateside. And we heard General Stavridis on Morning Joe saying the United States is vulnerable there in the cyber realm. And so, that's something of great interest to your viewers, and that is the kind of asymmetric response that we'll be watching for from Iran.
People keep saying asymmetric response, Mike. What does that mean? What are we prepared for? And what are the political ramifications depending on what that response is?
Yeah, so it's a non-superpower attacking a superpower, as you know, and you can do that through cyber. You can do that through attacks elsewhere, maybe not directly on American interests. And so finding other ways to respond as they vowed that they will, and they're sure to. That's why there's so much alarm around the world. No chance Iran doesn't respond. The question is how, where, who are they going to take on?
I've got people sending in some comments from the late John McCain that, speaking about this guy years ago, when are we going to do something? Is this going to go unchallenged? Are we going to let this get by? Are we going to let this slide? I mean, it goes all the way back to the Cole, if you can believe that. Mike,
yes.
This guy's and probably thousands of Americans. Now, do you have any firsthand knowledge on whether we know he was there planning more attacks on Americans? The White House is saying that. Do you have separate evidence that that's true? Can we believe that?
Well, so the administration is saying they have intelligence about planning attacks, but just look at what he's done. Look at the track record back when General David Petraeus was commander of coalition forces in Iraq. He was warning, Dexter Filkins writes in his great profile from 2013, writes that he was warning this is an evil person. This is someone who, through IEDs, other devices, cost many American lives, and is someone who greatly increased both the risk and the toll for Americans.
I think that the Democrats and the presidential candidates on the Democratic side, Mike, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're treading a little bit lightly because this was a really bad guy. And it's tough to say anything. And my point earlier was that if they just let it all hang out, we would have heard wag the dog by now. And we haven't heard that because we're in the middle of impeachment and all these other things. And that would have been Schumer. I still think he's going to say that at this point, that this is a wag the dog because he just had the latest email or whatever. Is that above what they're likely to do on the left?
The first half of what you're saying for sure is true. And that is, you look at what has been done, look at what's been planned, look at the pictures we've seen from the last few days. Very few Americans are going to object to that. But this is a great risk, and the New York Times pointing out this morning. This is something that George W. Bush and Barack Obama walked away from. All the coverage last night from the region, we heard long in American sight. No one went after him. This was the moment.
You'll probably only hear something like this from me, Mike and Eamon. But when I read Vice President Biden's comments, so let's see. Against the bin Laden raid, for the second Iraq war, against the first, for splitting Iraq into three, against the surge. Secretary Gates, who was President Obama's defense secretary.
I could tell this is where you were going. I knew you were going.
You know
here.
that quote.
Of course.
You know that quote, said in his book, Biden has been wrong about every major security and foreign policy issue for the last 40 years. So I can't help it. When I know that and I read this, it just, for me, it's tainted.
But what I will say, and this will be very interesting in the next few hours, Vice President Biden was there. We've seen the pictures, the vice president in the Situation Room. Unlike so many other people on the trail, he knows the intelligence, knows the options, knows the choices. And so in hearing his view of what we've done here, what was considered, why it wasn't done in the past, all is going to be extremely illuminating.
Okay, Eamon,
I want to bring you a little additional information that we're getting in from NBC's Richard Engel, who has now spoken to the president of Iraq on the telephone. So we're getting some reaction from the Iraqi side now. Richard Engel reporting that Iraqi President Barham Saleh is saying the situation in Iraq is very fragile, very precarious. I urge restraint on all sides. Iraq cannot be condemned to another cycle of violence. We've had too many wars over the last 4 decades. The situation now is very dangerous, no doubt, and that is why I am urging calm. So that's the reaction from the Iraqi side of all this, and there'll be some questions about whether the Iraqis were looped into this, participated in it in any way, or whether this came as news to them as it did to us, even though it happened right at the Baghdad airport.
Eamon brought us the Bolton comment too earlier, Mike. Were you surprised that I thought he was voted off the island? Is there? He's back. He's back with what he was saying about the president's handling of North Korea. I was surprised that he would be so positive. I guess he if it's hawkish, he's for it.
Well, a different way to say it is not being positive, but being realistic. He too knows the intelligence, and obviously incredible differences, some of which we've heard about, some of which we have not, that he had internally, both expressed and unexpressed. But what he said there, is a very helpful reflection of what they knew, what they were thinking about, what was considered when this decision was made.